People say when you live off the land long enough, it becomes a part of you. That was true for me and my wife, June. We'd carved out our life on a quiet patch of private farmland near Boggy Creek. Just the two of us, seasoned hunters with rifles older than most folks' grandkids, living off what we could catch, grow, and can. In the summer of 1972, a story started going around about a massive deer, antlers like tree limbs, body like a truck, and meat enough to feed a family for a whole season. Word was, it had been spotted near an old ridgeline deep in the creeklands. Most folks brushed it off as another tall tale. But me, I started marking maps and checking wind patterns. I remember the day it began, clear as glass. June had just come back from the general store with a few sacks of flour and coffee grounds. I was hunched over the map, running my finger along the spot. 3 different locals claimed they'd seen the beast. "Hey, honey," I said. "I think we should give this a try." She raised an eyebrow. "Why's that?" I smiled. "Ain't about getting my face in the paper, but I'll be damned if I let that meat go to waste for some half-drunk poacher to find." She chuckled, put her hands on her hips. "Well, all right. You look too cute with that scruffy beard not to trust. We'll head out in the morning." We left just after dawn, rifles strapped to our backs, boots laced tight. The air was crisp, smelled like wet earth and pine. June was quiet. She always got that way when we were tracking, focused, alert. But this time she kept glancing over her shoulder. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked. She slowed her pace. "I keep hearing something, back there in the brush. Probably just some foxes chasing each other. Don't worry, I got you." I kissed her temple, hand resting on the butt of my rifle. About an hour in, that smell hit us, like roadkill left out in July. Thick, rotting. It stuck to the back of your throat. We came across what looked like a big, weird beaver dam. Only this one wasn't made with twigs and mud. Bones, fur, guts, all jammed together like some backwoods trophy pile. Inside, half-eaten animals were strewn about. Rabbits, raccoons, something that looked like a dog. June turned and threw up behind a tree. "I want to head back," she said, wiping her mouth. "Just a little further," I said, trying to sound calm. But my gut was already tight. We reached a wide clearing, golden sunlight filtering through the pines. It was beautiful, silent, still. The perfect spot. I raised my binoculars and scanned the trees. And there it was. The deer, bigger than I imagined. Its antlers caught the sun like polished bone. I tapped June's arm and pointed. She knelt down with me. I slowly unzipped the case, pulled out my old Remington. My heart was steady. Years of hunting will do that. I took aim. But just then, something shifted in the edge of my view. Something down near the creek bed, crouched and drinking. At first I thought it was a bear. But no, it was too upright, too long in the limbs. Its fur was dark and coarse, like wet moss. Muscles rippled beneath it as it drank from the stream, completely unaware of us, or the deer. The deer noticed first. It froze, ears twitching. It took one cautious step back, right onto a mound of dry leaves. Crunch, loud enough to split the silence. The thing's head whipped around. That moment, I'll never forget it. Its eyes weren't animal eyes. They were aware, intelligent, and pissed off. It stood up, 8, maybe 9 feet tall, and took 2 slow, deliberate steps toward the deer. Then, without warning, it launched forward, like lightning. No noise but the crash of leaves and its own guttural roar. The deer ran, slipped. Then it was over. The creature tackled it, slammed it to the ground, fists pounding like hammers. I swear I heard bones crack from where we stood. Then it grabbed the deer's legs and swung it. Once, twice, like it weighed nothing. slamming it into the earth until it stopped moving. We didn't wait. We ran. Didn't look back. Didn't say a word. Just ran. Back at home, we didn't speak for hours. We sat on the porch, guns in our laps, watching the woods like two soldiers just back from war. That night, we locked every door and window. June couldn't sleep. Neither could I. We never saw it again, and we never told anyone. Who would believe us? But I'll tell you this. That deer, it wasn't just some big buck. It was bait, and we nearly took it. After that, we stuck to chickens and rabbits. The big game could have the woods. We weren't going back. Not after what we saw. And if you ever find yourself out there chasing legends in Boggy Creek, remember this. Sometimes the thing you're hunting isn't the real danger. Sometimes you're the one being hunted. They say legends are just stories told too many times by men who drink too much and live too little. That's what I used to think too, before the summer of 1976, when I went hunting with my granddad, my two older brothers, and our cousin Frankie down in Boggy Creek. We weren't city folk, born and raised just a couple counties over from FOUKE. We hunted every season, respected the land, and only took what we needed. But that summer, Grandpa wanted to take us boys someplace different. One last hunt, he called it. We drove out in his old Dodge pickup, gear piled high, rifles cleaned and oiled. Grandpa had been real quiet the whole way there, smoking his pipe, staring out at the tree line like he was remembering something that didn't sit right. "You boys ever hunt Boggy Creek before?" he finally said. We all shook our heads. He gave this little grunt. "Good. Keep it that way after this." Didn't make much sense at the time, but I remember how still the woods felt as we pulled off the dirt road, like everything was holding its breath. We set up camp in a little clearing near the creek. The air was hot and sticky. Mosquitoes buzzed like static. Grandpa said we'd go out just before sunset when the heat died down, see if we could catch something moving near the water. That's when we met him. We heard the steps before we saw him. Soft, slow, deliberate. A man came walking through the trees, wearing mismatched camo and a slouch hat with feathers in it. He had a long rifle slung over his shoulder and a face carved up like old leather. "Evening," he said in a voice like gravel. Grandpa didn't move. "You trespassing, old man?" The stranger smiled. "Ain't no such thing as trespassing in these woods. Not when it ain't you who owns them." We all stared at him. The man didn't seem scared or angry, just calm. Too calm. He walked closer and squatted by our fire pit. "Name's Mason. Used to poach these woods long before your daddy even knew what a deer was. Mind if I sit?" Nobody said yes, but he sat anyway. Then he started talking. "You boys ever heard the real legend of Boggy Creek?" he asked. Frankie snorted. "You mean the hairy ape thing that scared some housewives back in the day?" "Yeah, we heard it." Mason looked at him, slow and steady. "That ain't no ape, and it sure as hell don't care about your headlines. What lives out here ain't ever been caught because it don't want to be. It watches, waits." Grandpa just stared into the fire. Quiet. Mason continued. "Saw it myself back in '58. Thought I was tracking a deer, biggest one I'd ever seen. Turned out the tracks were laid out like bait. Led me right into its territory. Heard a scream like a hog being gutted alive, only deeper. Felt it in my chest. Never seen what made the sound, but I smelled it. Like death warmed over." "Why stay here?" I asked. "Why keep coming back if you saw something like that?" Mason gave this crooked grin. "Some things you run from. Some things you try to understand. Either way, it don't matter. Not in these woods." Despite the weirdness, Grandpa invited Mason to join us. We moved out just before sunset. Me, Grandpa, my brothers Daniel and Ricky, Frankie and Mason, limping along behind with that old rifle of his. We split into two groups. Mason and Grandpa went west along the ridge. The rest of us followed the creek. It was quiet at first. Birds, frogs, normal sounds of the woods. But as the sun sank lower, it got still. Too still. Like even the bugs didn't want to make noise. The air got heavier, warmer, like something was pressing down on us. Then we found the deer, or what was left of it. Half eaten, but not like any predator I knew. The ribs were snapped outward, not inward, like something pulled them apart. The meat was torn, not chewed, and there were prints, barefoot, huge, 3 toes. "What the hell made those?" Ricky whispered. Before I could answer, a scream tore through the trees. Not human, not animal, just raw pain and fury. "Grandpa!" I shouted. We ran, tripped over roots, branches snapping in our faces. By the time we reached the ridge, Mason was standing there alone, rifle raised, eyes scanning the tree line. "Where is he?" I yelled. Mason didn't look at me. "It took him." "What? What do you mean it took him?" He pointed. "Dragged him off that way. Fast. Too fast." I was shaking. Frankie vomited in the dirt. None of us knew what to do. Mason turned to me, his face grim. "We go now, or we never leave." We didn't argue. We hiked back to camp in silence, packed what we could and left the rest behind. They never found Grandpa. Not a trace. The search went on for weeks, but we all knew it wouldn't matter. Mason disappeared after that. No one's seen him since. Sometimes, I go back in my dreams, to that clearing, to those woods. I hear that scream again, feel the way the air went heavy and wrong, and every once in a while I think I see something standing just beyond the tree line, watching, still waiting. You can laugh if you want. Call it a tall tale told by tired men. But I know what we saw. I know what took him. And I'll never go back to Boggy Creek. Not again. Not ever. Not. You ever have a memory that doesn't feel like it happened to you, but more like something you watched in a nightmare? So real, so raw, you wake up sweating just thinking about it? That's what Boggy Creek became for me. It was supposed to be a weekend escape, just a bunch of us guys from different places and backgrounds, all seasoned hunters, some older, some younger, a few ex-military, a couple ex-cons, and even a few ex-poachers turned legit hunters. We rented a busted old bus and headed down to a remote patch of private farmland in southern Arkansas, near the Boggy Creek region. One road in, one road out. We were there to hunt big game. Hell, maybe even brag about who got the biggest kill. It started like any other hunting trip. The jokes were flying early on. "Man, it's good to get away from the wife and kids," shouted Rico, gnawing on a cold sausage stick. "Damn right," I laughed. But I had to remind mine this ain't no vacation. I'm bringing home meat. "Just don't steal all the kills, old heads," snapped Jay, one of the younger guys. "I might be 28, but I'll be damned if I don't bag something big." Everyone roared with laughter. We stopped off at this roadside burger joint to grab a bite before we hit the last leg of the trip. Some of us were 3, 4 burgers deep before we even blinked. That's when we noticed a framed clipping above the register. A yellowed newspaper article about the legend of Boggy Creek, missing persons, old sightings, that kind of thing. "Y'all believe in that crap?" I asked. Jay joked. "Yeah, my grandma said it knocked on her window and asked for sugar and tea." We all cracked up, except for the locals sitting in the corner. A couple of older folks just stared at us. One woman shook her head and whispered something under her breath. Didn't catch it, but the chill in the air stuck with me. We finally made it to the property just as the sun started dipping behind the trees. The house we rented? Total dump. Cracked windows, sagging porch, a door that looked like it'd fall off if you sneezed near it. Place looks like a horror movie, someone muttered. That's what makes it charming, I said, trying to keep the mood light. That's when I spotted a woman a few yards away at the neighboring house. She was bringing in groceries, alone. I figured I'd be polite. Let her know a bus full of armed strangers wasn't here to rob her. Just wanted to introduce myself, I said. We'll be here 3 days. Didn't want you feeling uneasy. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Well, thank you. Feels nice when people step up and deal with them themselves. I paused. Sorry, them. Oh, she said quickly. I meant the bears. Dangerous ones out here. Y'all be careful. But her smile never changed, and her eyes never blinked. That night, we split into 2 groups. Basic grid sweep, north and west woods. Radios on, 2-hour cap. We'd meet back at the house by 9:30 sharp. About 40 minutes in, something felt off. No animal noises, no birds, no bugs, nothing. Just the crunch of our boots and the occasional radio squawk. Then we started finding weird things. Tracks, huge ones, barefoot, deep in the mud. Makeshift structures, logs stacked like teepees, tree trunks bent in half. Jay pointed to one. What the hell could bend a tree like that? We radioed the others. You guys seeing this? They had. In fact, they just found a huge print too. Then the radio crackled again. Hey, it's Josh. He's gone. He was right behind us. Gone now. We fanned out, started searching, calling, yelling. That's when we heard it. Knocking. Heavy, rhythmic, distant. Someone, or something, banging on a tree trunk. We ran toward it thinking maybe it was Josh trying to signal us. But then the other group showed up, wide-eyed. You heard it too. The knocking stopped. The air felt wrong, electric, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Then came the growl, deep, low, echoing from the canopy above. We slowly turned our flashlights upward. What we saw should not exist. 10 of them. 10. Massive, hairy beasts crouched between the branches, red glowing eyes, wide jaws filled with jagged yellow teeth, matted fur hanging like wet rugs from their frames. They stared at us like we were prey, not even worth hiding from. We froze. Then someone screamed and fired. The moment the shot rang out, all hell broke loose. One of the creatures dropped from the trees, landed on Kenny, and ripped him in half like a paper doll. Blood sprayed across the dirt, the trees, our faces. We ran. I've never run faster. Trees cracked and crashed behind us. I heard someone scream, then go silent mid-breath. I looked back just once and saw a man yanked straight into the air, disappearing into the treetops. We made it to the house. Some guys dove onto the bus, trying to hide. Others barricaded the doors with furniture. Then the monsters came. They ripped through that bus like it was foil, peeled the roof clean off, grabbed the screaming men inside, and started devouring them, tearing flesh from bone, tossing limbs into the woods. The house shook as they threw themselves against it. Claws scraped along the windows. Heavy feet stomped across the roof. Gunfire erupted, but it was like shooting BBs at tanks. Then we found it, a trapdoor beneath the old carpet, leading into a root cellar. We didn't hesitate. We all dove down just as the front door exploded open behind us. We stayed down there all night, pressed against each other, silent, listening to the sound of wood shattering and inhuman snorts and growls above our heads. They searched for us, sniffed, pounded, tore the place apart. I could hear them breathing, raspy, almost wet. One of them growled my name. I swear to God, it knew my name. When the sun rose and everything went quiet, we finally crawled out. The house was in ruins. The bus was a twisted hunk of metal, blood, bone. No sign of half the guys who'd come with us. And across the field, that same woman stood in her window, watching. When she saw us, her eyes went wide, and she closed the curtain slowly, like she knew this would happen all along. We never reported what really happened. Who would believe it? The official story is bear attack, freak accident, gas leak. Whatever sounds more reasonable than the truth. But I know what I saw. We all do. And every night since, I've slept with the lights on. Because I still hear the knocking sometimes, in my dreams. And sometimes, from the woods behind my house. Never go back to Boggy Creek.